From this, we're on number 12. From this, we also have a lesson regarding the righteous accounting of the month of Elul. That it must be especially regarding the state of Eikev Elul to Mashiach. So what's this mean? As a Jew has the power to awaken himself and to arouse other Jews, other people, and mainly to arouse the so to say Hashem, and that Hashem listens to us and come and account the accounting of the world. That in other words, that we can make an accounting of cheshbon in the whole world, that according to our calculations, which Hashem has showed us in His Torah and in the miracles which He has performed in the world, Hashem should have already brought the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. The Rebbe is saying that according to God's Torah, for sure we already should be in the third base of Mikdash. It's an amazing thing. It's God just telling us. It's His Torah. Therefore, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thought that the Rebbe is the genius in Torah. And he says, you look in the Torah and you see God is telling us, according to what He said, we finished everything. And we should be in the base of Mikdash. The Rebbe says this is for a long time now, as mentioned above, and especially this year, which according to all the calculations assigned, this is the year in which the King Mashiach is revealed, as is spoken many times in the past months. So this is like an amazing thing. Rebbe brings us from various different places. Anyway, let's go. So the Rebbe is saying that everything is like we're sitting here, we should be right now in the third base of Mikdash. The Rebbe continues to emphasize the amazement that we're not there, and especially coming from the 3 weeks, that when the Jewish people were occupied in the studying of the laws of the base of Mikdash. So right now, this was said right before the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks is from the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av, is a time when during the Jerusalem was attacked and finally the base of Mikdash was destroyed. So in these 3 weeks, we learn specially to rebuild the base of Mikdash. We learn the laws having to do with the base of Mikdash and how it was made and the different things. So it says, so this is what we're talking about. And so then, especially coming from the 3 weeks, even more so we should be in the third base of Mikdash when the Jewish people were occupied in the study of the laws of the base of Mikdash, base of Bechira, the chosen one, which through this Hashem says, I will consider it as if they were occupied in building the base of Mikdash. Now, when we learn about it as though we're doing it, and especially since the base of Mikdash is already erected and built above, and it only needs to be descended below. So as the Rebbe say, everything's here, and the base of Mikdash is finished. I mean, you have to imagine everything what the Rebbe is saying over here and put it in our mind, and then we'll start to understand how the Rebbe sees things, and we'll start to understand what the Rebbe wants from us. And we already are standing after the 15th of Av, from which then and on whoever adds gains. It talks about then the winter's long, the nights are long, so more time to learn, less time to work. From the 15th of Av and on, in which the nights start getting longer than the days, and one utilizes them to study Torah, which he gains additional life to his life. The more you study, more life you get. And so this is the next thing that we're the 3 weeks we study about the base of Mikdash. We're from the 15th day when we're the time to study more Torah, and we're already standing close to the completion of 2 Shabbos after the 15th of which through guarding 2 Shabbos, as the law requires, the Torah says, promise immediately be redeemed. So the Rebbe is saying over here, there's a concept that says that if you keep 2 Shabbos completely in the right manner, right away God will redeem you. So he's saying not only, so he says that we're already after the 15th day of Av, how special the 15th day of Av, we said before, that you're studying more Torah and everything, and this is already 2 weeks after that special time, then we're supposed to be redeemed, because we did keep Shabbos to Shabbosim. And in addition, it is Shabbos, which blesses the month of Elul. The Rebbe's we're talking the day of Shabbos and the Parshas and the Rebbe's in the month which Hashem has revealed a king in the field, which then talks about that there's a parable of why is Elul so special. This is generally to get to the king when he's in his palace. You have to go through all the different things. If the president's in the White House, you have to go through this guard to that guard. How much more so when the king, a real king, when he's in his palace, you only get through him by going there's this protocol. You have to be honored. You have to, it's a special. Not everybody just walk in up to the king and say, "What's happening? I need some help. Please, God, help me. King, please help me out." But then Elul, it says, the mashal, it says it said what's revealed in Elul is the 13 attributes of mercy. This comes from the essence, from God's wonderfulness inside his essence, where he reveals mercy. And it says, so they explain this. So what does this mean in a way that we can understand it? It means that the king is in the field, that Hashem is in the field, and when he's in the field, he's smiling. He's going in the field and he's smiling, and anybody who wants to come up to him, he says hello to, and he helps them out. So that's the king is in the field. So that's what the Rebbe is talking about. That now, in addition, it's Shabbos, which we bless the month of Elul, a month when Hashem is revealed as the king in the field. So it's no even more special. Which then, all of those that want to greet the king are permitted and are able to do so, and he receives all of them with a pleasant countenance, and he shows them a joyous expression to all. And in addition to this, we find ourselves in the synagogues. Another reason the Rebbe is saying that it's totally not understood why we're not by the third base of Mikdash already. In addition to this, we find ourselves in the 770 Rebbe is talking about. A synagogue, the house of study, and the house of good deeds, together with a congregation of Jewish people, many tziburim. A tzibur means a congregation, a minimum it's 10. So the Rebbe said there are many tens of tzibur congregations, because it says by each congregation, if there are 10 Jews sitting together, it says as God reveals himself such high, so much revelation godliness, that it says that if a Malchus would go by it would be burned up by the godly light. So it's so special. That's when you have just 10 special Jews together, spend holy Jews, just regular Jews, even if they're not doing Torah mitzvahs, just 10 Jews, because we're holy by ourselves. The Rebbe says here we're sitting in 770 and with thousands of people, tens of tens. And the tens of Jews, and a Jew receives in this place and time the greatest powers, because we're such a special place. And he also has the greatest merit and the responsibility to rest and cry out to Hashem, Ad Masai, to ask Hashem, until when? Now we're down to 13. So the Rebbe is just showing even more so that it's so important for us to meditate and to think about all the wonderful things that there are, and how much God has to give us. In other words, He owes us the Gula Shlema. We have to demand from Him. Number 13. Now we're on page 85, number 13. Since we have already completed all the aspects of our deeds and our service necessary to bring the redemption, and therefore we cry out, amen, until when Admasai is spoken above. The roaring question arises: what's happening here? What's story? Since we've already accomplished all that matters, how is it possible Mashiach has not yet come? Because we're talking about God. God's in charge, and we've done everything. So how's it possible God didn't do it? So maybe there's something the Rebbe says that we may possibly explain as follows. Maybe it's something's there that we didn't quite do. It's hard to understand, but the Rebbe's like trying to see what it might be. So it says, it's known that the letter of the Baal Shem Tov, when the Baal Shem Tov was the first Hasidic Rebbe, and when he came, it was like a new soul that came, and a new concept of Hasidus, which is the Torah Mashiach, was starting to be revealed. So he went up, and his whole concept is that we have to bring Mashiach down and follow. So he thought he'd passed away. He actually was brought up above, and he went to the holy chamber up above where Mashiach was sitting, and he asked the King Mashiach, he says, and when he went in, and he asked the King Mashiach, when are you coming? And the King Mashiach says, I'm coming when your teachings, your beautiful teachings of the essence of the Torah is spread out through the whole world. The Torah's Chasidus, and they spread out, and everybody understands, everybody sees, and that's when I'm ready to come. That's when the world's ready for me. They have to know that the specialness of that, and have learned it and know it. So it says, so that this is a dream, or not a dream, the vision. He went up above and saw this, and he wrote this in a letter. And this is like the whole concept of Chassidus, why we have to teach it for ourselves, to spread it through our whole being and to everybody else, so we can bring the redemption much faster. So let's go from the top of this. In number 14, we may possibly explain as follows. It is known that the letter of the Baal Shem Tov, when he gives over the answer of the King Mashiach on the question of the Baal Shem Tov, when is the Master coming? When's Mashiach coming? He says, when your wellsprings are spread outward. Meaning that in the coming of Mashiach, that the coming of Mashiach is dependent upon the spreading of the wellsprings outward of Chassidus, i.e. that your wellsprings of the Chassidic teaching should be disseminated and even reach Chutzah, the outermost and the most furthest away details and aspects of creation. Since after all the great, now the Rebbe is going to explain how we've done it all. It's amazing. I mean, everybody knows about the Tanya. Everybody knows about the Rebbe. It's so much around the world. Since after the great multitudes of the compliments of the Rebbes are leaders to spreading the wellsprings outward until now, in a true great manner to the extent of the teachings of all sects of Jewish people, still Mashiach has not yet come. It's possible, makes sense to say that there's an additional category of Jewish people which the spreading of wellsprings has not yet reached, as follows. So the Rebbe is saying there's someplace, and he's going to go on to explain. Now that there is no need to elaborate about how much the Rebbes, our leaders, have accomplished throughout the generation, the spreading of the wellsprings outward, since everyone can see this clearly, beginning with the revelation of the Hasidic doctrine from the Baal Shem Tov, and afterwards the additions which had been achieved generation after generation through the Rebbes, our leaders, until our generation, in which the work of spreading the wellsprings outward was broadened, that through my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, the leader of our generation, Pius Lubavitch Rebbe, and especially after his coming to the Lowest Hemisphere America, is much greater manner than in comparison how it was before. It's interesting, the Rebbe points out that only through America and more men, which says the Lower Hemisphere America, as we talked about before, that God didn't reveal his Torah here. It's like the furthest away. It's only from here can we, then when the Frierdiker Rebbe came here, when we really started to much greater degree the idea of the spreading of Hasidus. In addition to all the explanations, expounding, etc., of the concepts of the inner dimensions of the Torah, which are added in our generation based on the general rule, the understandings of the inner dimension of Torah, which were given beforehand. So this is new concepts of the secrets of the Torah in our generation, that the spreading of the Resmi outward has become in a manner that is encompassed and permeates the widest array of groups of Jewish people throughout the world, Jewish people of all types and all backgrounds, and the devastation to all ends of the world and parts and corners of the world, including and especially through the translation of aspects of the Hasidic teachings in the languages of the nations of the world, which makes them more accessible for everyone. And very interesting, it was one of the reasons that one of the main reasons that I really continued to push myself to do this is that in 2012 I was in Israel, and I was personally I was always in bad shape. I was very bad shape, but I didn't go into details. But it was not there was a very darkness over there. So once I wrote into the Rebbe, that we write in the Rebbe's holy letters, I opened up the holy letters, and the Rebbe said two things. I was teaching a person there who was 55 years old, a friend of mine, good man. He was also a Levi, Avram Levine, and he had 16 kids and more than twice the amount of that grandkids last I talked to him. And, where was I reading? And so when I wrote into the Rebbe said two things. He said, one thing, it's not a small thing that you put the Hasidic the warmness of Hasidus in a family. And here, my friend, he had lost a son-in-law in a terrorist attack, and his wife had ended up having a small stroke, and he wasn't able to work. He used to be an engineer, then a sofer, and he had all these kids at home, and he had and at that time he had 8 kids at home. They had two rooms was the living room. That's what they were living in, and they really weren't able to hang out the laundry for everybody. And they used to, so therefore they used an electric dryer. Now in Israel, electricity is very, very expensive. People don't use electric dryers unless you're rich. And they used to put over there, and that's how hard his life was. And they used to put over there the his bill on the refrigerator, so one of his son-in-laws might see it. Anyways, it was very, very difficult time, but we were able there to study. So basically, I learned with him a lot, and I didn't know he was in such bad shape. And a couple of months later, we were learning Dvar Malchus. This is what this stuff we're learning. We're learning in English. He said he told me that he totally his life changed around. His wife said she has a husband again. So at that same Igris, and the Rebbe wrote me in that same Igris, the Rebbe said to me in another point, in another letter on the same page, he says that you have to teach these concepts right away, and you can't wait for them to learn the language, and you should teach them like in English. So this is what the Rebbe is talking about. The fact that Chassidus now is accessible in every language means all of us can grab it. Which, through all of this, the wellsprings of the doctrine of Chassidus have reached out to every group of Jewish people in the outer realms, to the extent that in the outermost, to the extent of in the outermost, there is no further than as such. Every Jew, in whatever place and what level he might find himself, has at least the power and capability, even at the moment he does not have any clear connection to it, to relate and connect to the wellsprings of Chassidus during his life. Now, the Rebbe says it's out there, that no matter where you're holding, you can pick up a book, and there's things that are written that will attach you to Chassidus and attach it. No matter where you're holding, it's out, it's capable. Since up to all this, namely, that all the immense amount of accomplishment in the spreading of the wellsprings outward until now, in a truly great abundance, the Mashiach has not yet come, it is possible that there is room to say, seemingly, that there still remains a certain group and an area of outward which the wellsprings have not yet reached until now. And possibly this is the last hindrance upholding the coming of his master, the Mashiach, who comes as an outcome of the spreading of the wellsprings outward. What time do we have? Huh? Oh, that's it? Okay, right. Now we're on number 15. So, okay. We're number 15, page 87. A thought has come to me that there is a whole type of written letters. Rebbe's amazing. You just see how the Rebbe sees things. This is Dvar Nifla. So it says there's a whole type of written letters which the wellsprings of the doctrine of Chassidus have not yet reached, that according to the information which we have here. So it says this hasn't gone out to the world. What's this? What type of written letters? For the people it should not befall upon us which have not the ability to see, heaven forfend, God forbid, being that they are saginar. Being that they are saginar, and it explains over there in footnote 122 that they have a lot of light. The Rebbe will explain later that they have so much light they cannot see. They cannot see. It's just too much light. And especially the ability of God. But for people it shouldn't befall upon us which do not have the ability to see heaven forfend, being that they are saginar. A special writing has been made for them, which is called in the language of the country Braille, in which the writing sticks out in a manner that even a person which is sightless, heaven forfend, can touch and feel the letters with his fingers, and through this know what it says there. It is self-understood that this true state of outwards, the furthermost outward, that there is no further than it, as understood from this itself, that afterwards all the efforts and the accomplishments in the spreading of wellspring outwards, to which we have reached everywhere else, as mentioned above, that we have until now have not reached this area. The Rebbe said, now we're in 16. Now, however, the innovation was achieved, for in the recent days a book of Tanya was printed in Braille, which through this a revolution was accomplished of disseminating the wellsprings that has reached even the new type of the outward for the sightless. The Rebbe says this is it. Now we've done everything. And even though this Tanya presently has not yet reached all the Jewish people to whom it is relevant. However, the mere fact that in the world exists a copy of Tanya in Braille, this itself brings the wellsprings of Chassidus even in this type of outward, and gives the possibility of the wellsprings of Chassidus to also be accessible for the Jewish people who find themselves, heaven forbid, in the situation that in their lifetimes that they may have a connection with the doctrine of Chassidus. So the Rebbe is saying here that since it's already here, therefore the capability of people to grab it and understand it is there. And especially since the Tanya has already arrived in this house. The Rebbe came to 770, the synagogue, the house of study, and the house of good deeds, which is founded on the 4 cubits of my father-in-law. My father-in-law. Oh, that's the next story? Oh, I'm sorry. And especially since the Tanya has already arrived in this house. The synagogue, the house of study, and the house of good deeds, which is found in the 4 cubits of my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe, the leader of our generation, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, in the last 10 years in this world, for holiness does not leave its place. So the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was there, and his holiness, the Rebbe says, his holiness doesn't leave its place, that the source of the disseminating of the wellsprings outward, this is the source of everything come outward through the entire world. This is where everything comes. All Chassidus comes from 770. And we have merited to continue his work in the synagogue, the house of study, the house of good deeds, and also through making in this place Chassidish gatherings, including and especially the work as disseminate the wellsprings of outward, and with an increase in a matter of ascending in matters of holiness. Now, Baruch Hashem, I spent a lot of time by the Rebbe in the early years. I should have spent more. But the Rebbe he would talk godliness. He would talk Hasidus like for hours on end on Shabbos and other times. He would talk several hours at a time. Unbelievable stuff. It was just God was going straight through him. It was deep stuff. No notes, no nothing. He just talked from his own essence being that was connected to Hashem. So this is we're talking about. The Rebbe says over here that the work of disseminating wellsprings outward, and in other words, the Rebbe did this so much. It's amazing. And the Rebbe's talking, and we may add that since the book of Tanya is the written Torah of Chassidus, it is understood that the Tanya includes in it all the aspects of the wellsprings of Baal Shem Tov of Chassidus doctrine, just as the written Torah proper includes the entire oral Torah. There's nothing that is not alluded to it in the written Torah. And especially, in other words, we have, it talks about, we have written Torah and the oral Torah. The written Torah is the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, what we wrote down. The oral Torah with all the other books that we have, which explains how things work, the Gemara, Chassidus, that's all the oral Torah. Originally wasn't written down, but because the generations where they said they went down to lower levels, that it was necessary to write it down, and now it's written down and it's all there for us. So therefore it says, and you have any law or anything that the rabbis figured out what we're supposed to do according to the basis on all the matters in the Torah. It says that the rabbis figured out how to do all of this stuff. They had to, every time we're doing a mitzvah, it had to be based in the written Torah someplace. So the Rebbe is saying here, it says that the Alter Rebbe, it took I think it was 25 years, 26, I'm not too sure, many years to write the Tanya. Every word is exact. And the Tanya is known as the written book of Chassidus, the written Torah. So the Rebbe says in the Tanya, even it has all the oral, the written Torah, but everything that came later, all the Chassidus that the Rebbe's for revealing, and all the different levels of the later Rebbe's, that's included in there. And especially that it is possible to say that in Tanya there's also the oral Torah of Chassidic teaching, the oral Torah within the written Torah itself. That this is called the 5th part, named the Kuntas Achron, similarly to the book of Deuteronomy, it's 5th book Nishtor, which is called and is the source of the oral Torah. So we have 5 books in the books of Moses. Now the last book is called Dvarim, Deuteronomy, and Moshe Rabbeinu is repeating through him everything Hashem says, and it's known as the 5th book. So the 5th book also has a special level that is it's a very special higher level. It's a Kesser. So he's saying the same thing is that just like it says that the book of Deuteronomy of Dvarim is considered like it was said through Moshe. So it's like the idea of the oral Torah. It says everything in the oral Torah is found in that last book. So the Rebbe is saying also that in Chassidus, and the Tanya has 5 sections. So the final section is called Kuntus Akron. That is also it's like the Mishnah Torah. It's like the last book of the 5 books of Moses. Now we're on number 17. The main point in all the above is spoken is, of course, the true and complete redemption through our righteous Mashiach, literally. Therefore, whether if the above spoken has a relevance to this or not, whether it's talking about the idea of bringing Braille into English, for the Tanya to Braille, or not, it is now that we have already accomplished this aspect in the spreading the wellsprings outward. Certainly that the imminently and literally immediately the true and complete redemption through Mashiach must come already. And then there will also be the complete healing of the Jewish people, as our sages say. In the time to come, the sightless are healed, as it says, that the eyes of the blind shall be opened. And furthermore, when Hashem will come to heal the world, he does not heal first any other but the blind. In such a manner that they be called in Hebrew saginor, which means abundance of light, in a good sense, in that they will have abundance of light in the simple meaning, in a way that it doesn't decrease, heaven forbid, the physical power of sight. In other words, saginor means that a blind person has so much light coming in, he can't see the physicality of the world. But times of Mashiach says he's still going to be the great light, but he's going to be able to see everything. It's going to be in a good way. And then he will automatically have the capability to read and to learn Torah from the regular written letters like anyone else. And as noted there, and note that then in the time of the redemption we will not need written letters. Since all the Jewish people hear Torah from all-encompassing one, Hashem, God is going to tell us everything. As it stated, that new Torah secrets shall be revealed by me. That through the truth, that even the veteran student, the Mashiach, he's the most special student of Hashem, who will teach the whole nations. God, the Rebbe is going to teach us all. And the new Torah secrets from the all-encompassing one, he teaches the special secrets from Hashem with additional explanations and elucidations. And learning through seeing specifically, we're going to see him. We're going to see these things in a manner there will be no need to use written letters, as simply understood from what it said. And they will not teach one another, for everyone shall know me, and from young to old. Now the Mashiach is going to be here right now, take us home. We're going to see our God will be able to, like night, looking at me, I'm looking at the computer, my book, I see these things. This God, everything, I won't need any of this, because God will be revealing the essence. We'll see it. We'll see how everything's working. We'll see godliness in every place and everything. And it may be the will of Hashem that imminently, and it may be the will of Hashem that imminently, immediately after this moment, that this should be a moment before the redemption, that through studying of the above mentioned book of Tanya, by those who need it now, Hashem should immediately heal from them this, and that they should have an abundance of light in a good sense, as mentioned above, and read and learn Torah, including the height of professional Torah study and the true and complete redemption. The new Torah secret shall be revealed by me, as mentioned above. And furthermore, mainly the true and complete redemption through Mashiach immediately and literally immediately. L'chaim, everybody, we should mamish see it. I'm telling you, I'm learning this over. I'm remembering the year when the Rebbe was speaking this. Many times I go in, or we heard it over the phone. The Rebbe is saying this. It's amazing, and you really feel the eminence of Mashiach. And now today, it's even more eminent, as you can see in the world. It's Eikev Elul, Hashem. Then we're going to start on the next Parshas Rebbe. Now that we learned these few parshas, we can see better. We can see Melech Mashiach better and Gula better. We're going to start now on Parshas Rebbe, next class, Mitzvah Hashem. Eikev Elul, Yichi Adonenu, Malrein Venu, Melech Mashiach Limbet.